There are many features in games that everyone can agree are just annoying or straight up bad, and Marvel Rivals is no exception. Today, we're looking at some of the most disliked features in Marvel Rivals, starting with one of the worst. The most frustrating thing in any competitive game is that one character who seems invincible and just won't die. In Marvel Rivals, that character is Mr. Fantastic. With his reflexive rubber ability, he can absorb nearly every attack, even ults, and throw the damage right back at his attacker. On top of that, it buys him time to get healed by a support, making him practically unkillable unless you manage to corner him. But it doesn't stop there. His flexible elongation ability is both a shield and a death sentence for anyone with zero mobility, because if he dashes toward you, it's game over. As well as that, his elastic strength, which boosts his attack and shields him. At this point, the devs might as well have just said,
"Let's make him a Vanguard already."
The real issue with Mr. Fantastic isn't just him being annoying. He's also, at this point, a dual-class character, which on paper already sounds broken. He can tank damage like a frontline while still dealing insane damage. But if you thought Mr. Fantastic was bad, just wait until you hear about his wife, Invisible Woman. Being Mr. Fantastic's wife, you'd think Susan Storm should be a little easier to deal with. But from the moment she was released, players quickly realized she's anything but easy to handle. The second you try to take her out, she vanishes into thin air, disappearing before you can kill her. Then, before you know it, she's back with her team, healing everyone instantly. And suddenly, the fight you were winning? Yeah, not anymore. And if that wasn't bad enough, her shielding ability is easily one of the most disliked mechanics in the game. It's completely indestructible, meaning no amount of firepower will break through it. If she decides to protect a key target, you might as well stop shooting and pray. Now, if you pair that with the Punisher's turret, your only real option is to wait it out or die trying. At this point, it feels like Susan Storm wasn't just designed as a support. She was designed to make sure you never have fun. If you thought that was disliked, just remember the features only get worse from here. Like this next one, which absolutely sucks. Loki is Marvel Rivals' version of a tower defense game. You set up clones on high ground, put your balloons TD6 experience to the test, and obliterate anyone who steps into your line of fire. But the real problem? Loki is a support. Yet he plays like a better duelist than some actual duelists. His ability to clone himself is already annoying, but the fact that he can swap places with one of those clones right before dying, that's just hated by everyone. So just when you think you've finally taken him down, he's gone, and you're left chasing bots instead. And speaking of cloning, let's talk about his runestones. His regeneration domain not only heals, but also converts incoming damage into more healing. It's one of the strongest healing abilities in the game because it's basically instant. And as long as you're in the area of the runestone, you'll keep getting healed. But here's where it gets even worse. More clones mean more runestones. Since each clone creates its own healing zone, Loki can have up to 3 active at once. That's huge amounts of healing, making him one of the hardest supports to take down. But the most hated part about Loki is not just his healing or his clones. It's his ultimate, God of Mischief. With this ability, he can shapeshift into any character, whether ally or enemy, and instantly gain their ultimate. That means he can steal instant ults from heroes like Magneto or Adam Warlock, giving his team a big boost. At this point, Loki is just the wizard monkey from Bloons. Spider-Man isn't too frustrating to deal with in lower elo, mostly because he's a difficult hero to play. But the moment you run into a skilled Spider-Man player, things change fast. If you're low on health, he'll dive in, take you out, and be gone before you can react. Once he tags you with a spider tracer, he'll zip straight to you, land an uppercut, and send you right back to spawn. And before your teammates can even think about avenging you, he's already swung out of danger. His mobility alone makes him a menace, and trying to keep up with him, it's nearly impossible. His ultimate is also one of the most disliked in the game. He fires webs in every direction, covering the battlefield and dealing ridiculous amounts of damage. If your team doesn't have healing, you're as good as wiped out. It's not just the damage, it's the fact that there's almost no escape once you're caught in it. Being one of the hardest characters to master, you won't run into many strong Spider-Man players in the early game. Most struggle with his mechanics, making him far less of a threat at lower ranks. But don't let your guard down, because Venom exists. Thanks to his suit expulsion ability, Venom can share part of his symbiote with Spider-Man, unlocking symbiote abilities. For Spider-Man, This means he can turn the symbiote into explosive spikes, dealing massive damage and knocking back enemies caught in the area. Suddenly, that hard-to-catch Spider-Man just became even harder to fight. But someone who isn't as hard to fight against, yet has one of the most disliked abilities in the game, is Groot. Groot's wall is easily one of the most frustrating mechanics in the game. He can shut down ultimates, cut off escape routes, and isolate enemies, making him an absolute nightmare to deal with. And as if that wasn't enough trouble, he also has the highest damaging primary attack of any tank, with solid range too. But here's the real problem. Having a bad Groot on your team might be even worse than facing him. In the worst case scenario, he'll start placing random walls that do nothing but give the enemy space to heal and regroup, completely turning fights in their favor. Instead of blocking enemies, he's blocking his own teammates, and at that point, you're fighting against Groot and the enemy team. A perfect example of why Groot is so hated is his wall placement. If he drops a wall behind you, it cuts you off from your support, meaning no healing, no backup, and no escape. You're completely trapped, left to fend for yourself while the enemy team piles on the damage. It's frustrating enough when he's on the enemy team, but when your own Groot misplaces a wall and accidentally blocks you in, it might be worse. But if there's one character worse than Groot, it has to be Jeff. While we all love the cute and quirky Jeff, he can be an absolute menace to play against. And the main reason is his ultimate disliked by everyone. The moment you hear that num num num, you already know you're doomed, because Jeff is about to chomp you up and toss you straight off the map. It's bad enough in regular fights, but in overtime, it's a game changer. He can swallow enemies whole, clear the objective, and single-handedly secure the win. And when you finally think you got him cornered, he just dives underground and swims away, slipping out of danger like nothing even happened. On top of everything, Jeff's healing is easily one of the best in the game. His continuous stream of water can heal allies no matter the situation, keeping his team constantly sustained. And then there are his bubbles, which are just as frustrating. If an enemy picks one up, they get an instant health boost and a speed increase, making them even harder to take down. So not only is Jeff impossible to catch, but he's also constantly healing his team and boosting their mobility. Jeff's damage is surprisingly solid, but that doesn't mean it's fun to deal with. He might be a support, but he can still dish out enough damage to be a threat, especially when combined with his healing and mobility. Trying to take him down feels like a waste of time. He's just going to dive underground and escape anyway. That's why most players don't even bother chasing him once he slips away. Lesson learned: don't add animals to a competitive game. Oh, and speaking of animals, Squirrel Girl's ultimate is just as annoying. Squirrel Girl might not seem like the most intimidating character, but don't let that fool you. She can be a nightmare to deal with in the right hands. Her long-range bombardment lets her constantly pressure enemies from a safe distance, and thanks to her burst acorn, she can rain down damage without ever putting herself at risk. And then there's her squirrel blockade, which can imprison targets, bad on its own, but when paired with Spider-Man, she gets webbed acorn, allowing her to root multiple enemies at once. But the real frustration? Her ultimate, unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami. She summons a horde of squirrels that charge forward, bounce off walls, and seek out enemies. If you're caught in its path, good luck. You're getting run down by a stampede of rodents. Luckily, she has some major weaknesses. Her damage falls off heavily at range, she has zero self-sustain, and her ultimate is useless against flying enemies. But even with those downsides, when played right, she's still one of the most disliked duelists to deal with. Luna Snow is a solid support, no doubt, but her ultimate, easily one of the most hated in the entire community. Imagine this. The entire team is one fight away from losing. They're all at half health, your team is ready to clean up, ults are popped, comms are on point, and then she shows up. She activates Fate of Both Worlds, and just like that, the entire team is back to full health and gets a massive damage boost. Your team, wasted ults, wasted abilities, wasted everything. It's the strongest healing ability in the game, hands down. 12 whole seconds of constant healing, bonus health, and a 40% damage boost. Not to mention she's immune to crowd control while dancing, so you can't even interrupt her. A complete nightmare to deal with, but there's one, just one character who tops them all. You know who's coming. Iron Fist is without a doubt one of the most annoying and universally hated characters in Marvel Rivals. His entire kit is built around dodging, absorbing, and countering attacks, making him ridiculously hard to kill. He's got insane mobility, with 3 jumps and wall running, meaning he can escape nearly any fight whenever he wants, and if you do manage to catch him, his dragon's defense blocks incoming damage and turns it into extra health, rewarding him for getting attacked. And let's talk about his insane damage potential. His dashing punch lets him lock onto enemies and punch them into oblivion with rapid strikes. His Keon Lun kick has crazy range, and if you're under 50% health, you're basically dead. But the worst part, his ultimate living chi. The moment he pops it, his speed and attack range all skyrocket, and his dragon's defense becomes nearly unstoppable. At this point, he just jumps into your backline, deletes your supports, and keeps himself alive the entire time. Even if you manage to weaken him, his Harmony recovery lets him heal, converting excess healing into bonus health. So he's not just hard to kill, he's impossible to kill unless you land a full team's worth of focus fire. And if that wasn't enough, pair him with Luna Snow, and he gets 15% bonus damage just for existing. Iron Fist is in every way a walking nightmare, whether he's on your team or the enemies. One thing is certain, he's always frustrating to deal with. Not to mention his pure hatred for Iron Man players. If you think being in the sky keeps you safe, Iron Fist is here to personally ruin your day. While most ground-based heroes struggle against aerial opponents, Iron Fist doesn't care. He'll triple jump, wall run, and use Kun La Kick to launch himself straight at Iron Man, closing the gap instantly. The second he gets in range, it's over. A flurry of locked-on punches, a parry if you try to fight back, and then he sends you plummeting back to the ground in shame. Iron Fist doesn't just counter Iron Man, he hunts him down, and considering how strong Iron Man is, that just makes him even more frustrating to play against.